I was recently at a content creators conference and I met an amazing and powerful young woman, Jennifer Garrett. She's an Army JAG officer and she has a podcast, Move the Ball, Suit Up, Show Up. I think it's a great episode with us together, and so let's hear from Jennifer. And here is Jennifer Garrett and Move the Ball, Suit Up, Show Up.
Hey everybody, I'm Jen Garrett, internationally recognized branding consultant, attorney, and best-selling author of the books Move the Ball and Dominate the Game. My passion for football, high achievement, and pushing boundaries has helped me to get into rooms with pro athletes and power players and to move the ball in multiple male-dominated industries. Now, I'm using the same Move the Ball methodology to help thousands of people dominate their game when it comes to their brands, their careers, and creating opportunities. Join me in conversations that will elevate your career, differentiate your hustle, and accelerate you crossing the goal line. Get ready. It's time to suit up, to show up, and to move the ball. Hello, and thanks for joining me today. Really quickly, if you haven't already done so, be sure that you follow the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And also, if you like the show, please leave me a review. Lastly, don't forget to share the show with others too. For today's episode, I've got a special guest. Many of you know that I am a military officer. I'm an Army judge advocate. And if you don't know what that is, well, if you've seen the TV show JAG or the movie A Few Good Men, well, that is me. I am an Army lawyer. Today, I'm excited to have an incredible naval officer on the show who is a retired 2-star flag officer, Rear Admiral Gary E. Hall. He's got over 20 years senior management experience, both in the military and the corporate sector, including serving as the commander, Expeditionary Strike Group 2, leading 27 ships and 16,000 sailors and Marines, as well as serving as the special assistant to the president and senior director at the National Security Alliances. On today's episode, Gary and I discuss his leadership experience, Gary's tips for showing up the right way, his views on networking, and more. You ready? Let's go. Gary, it is so great to have you on the show and inside the huddle with us. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Jen. I'm super duper pooper scooper, and that's literally because I have a 5-month-old Labrador puppy, and that keeps me active. But I'm doing great this morning, and I'm honored to be on your show. You're an amazing individual.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to us chatting today. We recently had the pleasure of meeting at a conference in Chicago called Creative Con, which was held earlier this year. It's put on by some top-notch individuals. And I know we're going to have a great conversation on today's show. But before we get into that, Gary, I have to ask you, are you ready to move the ball?
I am always moving the ball, so I am ready to move the ball. Let's kick it.
Awesome. Let's do it. So, Gary, before we get into the meat of the conversation, I just really want to applaud you. When we were at Creative Con, I was sitting on stage on a panel of podcast hosts, and you were among a group of brave individuals who were willing to pitch us and share your story with the audience in a 2-minute pitch style format on why you would be a great guest for our show. And the reason why I think that's important, I wanted to bring that up. I mean, for you, Gary, you are not new to the stage, but on this particular stage, you've got all these people looking at you. Many are strangers. You're putting yourself out there. And I know you've done podcasts before. You're a podcast host. You've been in high positions of leadership, both in the military as well as in the corporate world. So being watched by others isn't completely new to you, but it still takes courage to get up in front of a bunch of people who don't know you and put yourself out there. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that, because I think it's important that we all take those risks and put ourselves out there and share our story.
Well, thank you, Jen. And the key word that popped up as you talked about that is courage. And I talk to a lot of young people and I say, you got to show courage. And they really don't know what that means. And I say, courage is not the absence of fear. It's being prepared so that you can operate through your fears and complete a mission. So, and you know that from your continued Army time.
Absolutely. And for me, and I know you're big on this too, you will receive the outcomes that you want in life or that you're going after if you show up the right way. And I know we're going to talk about some things you think that are important when it comes to showing up. So let's just get into that part and then we'll kind of go through some other parts of your career. But when you think about moving the ball and being able to achieve the outcomes that you want in life, how you show up matters, as I just mentioned. So when you think about, and I know you talk to a lot of people, as you just mentioned, when you're talking to younger individuals or anybody, what do you tell them about how they should be showing up the right way to position themselves for success?
Oh, well, thank you, Jen. Perfect question. And in the Navy, I commanded two squadrons and I commanded a ship with 1,000 sailors and 2,000 Marines. And I'd often have discussions with moms and dads saying, how can my son or daughter be successful? And I said, it's simple, 5 easy steps. And that is show up rested and ready to go. In other words, you don't want to be having your son or daughter playing video games until 2 o'clock in the morning and then expect them to be functional at 7 a.m. formation. And then be clean in body, mind, and uniform. And what I mean by that is nobody likes to work with somebody that stinks. So being clean of your body and clean of uniform. So in other words, if you present a nice image, you're going to get a halo effect. They're going to go, okay, this person took time to shower, shave, and put on a clean uniform. And that uniform may be khakis and a polo shirt, depending on what industry you're in. And be clean of mind. In other words, have good thoughts, have positive thoughts, not negative thoughts. So be clean of body, mind, and uniform. Sometimes for some people, that's a little bit harder than others. And then when you go to work, when you show up, do more than is expected. And then do it with a smile, with a great attitude. I'll tell you, when somebody around you is smiling and has a great attitude, it inspires others. Or it may ask, what doesn't he know that's going on right now? And then finally, show initiative. When you're young and say you're in the military, hey, how about emptying that trash can in the office without being asked? Show initiative. So those simple things, no matter what your industry, what your age, will help you move the ball and move it forward.
Well, I love those. You touched on so many great points. I mean, I really want to talk about just a couple of them real quickly. You talked about that positive energy and taking initiative. I mean, those are things that are so simple to do. And when you have that positive attitude and you're bringing that positive energy forward, it's contagious. It affects the entire organization who you're touching virtually or in person. So it's so important to be mindful of the energy that we bring into any space, whether again, it's virtual or it's in person. And then also you talked about being mindful of your appearance, right? And wearing a clean uniform too. I mean, that goes to, I do a lot of work in the branding space and it goes to your image and your brand and what people are always watching you. And you know that, Gary. And so how you conduct yourself and how you look is a very important part of whether or not other opportunities get presented to you. So it's very important to be making sure that you look the part, you're playing the part, you've got the right attitude, and that you're taking initiative to set yourself apart from other people.
Yes, your point, people are always watching you. No matter who you are, people are watching. I was aide to, when I was on active duty, I was a lieutenant commander, and I was aide to a 3-star admiral. And he was in charge of the nation's nuclear war plan. Can it be any more stressful? Can it be any more important than to be in that position? Well, we were traveling to the Pentagon and we were staying in the Washington Navy Yard and rented a car. We parked, got out, we each grabbed our luggage, and we're walking to our visiting flag officer quarters. And we had to walk by the Chief of Naval Operations Rose Garden. He stopped, he put down his luggage, he reached over the fence, pulled a rose to his nose, sniffed it, and said, let out a, ah. And then he said, Gary, you need to smell this. And I went, holy smokes, this powerful man just stopped to smell the roses. So me watching him do that had a tremendous impact. And he's been a model for me to follow the rest of my Navy career and beyond.
Oh, I love that. And now you, Gary, you have also been a flag officer, 2-star admiral. And something that I like to say is moving the ball is all about differentiation and separation, meaning you have to differentiate yourself and have that unique value proposition so people know you as an expert and want to bring you into things. And also, you need to be separating yourself in the things that you're doing so that you are kind of showing how you're different than other people. So again, those opportunities, it's that differentiation in what you bring to the table and also the things that you do on the day-to-day basis to set yourself apart. What are things that you did throughout your military career to differentiate yourself from everybody else?
Well, one, I learned from others, but I used a coaching style. not a authority type style, but coaching young sailors, young officers to complete the mission, including them in the formulation of the mission. I used humility, which is extremely difficult for me at times. And I used humor. Now, not everybody can use humor and know when to use humor, but that differentiated me. And some people felt that, oh, Gary got advanced because he's got a great sense of humor. And I would say, no, when you have humor, you have to even work harder on the professional aspect. So I loved my sailors and Marines. I truly did. And that just shows. And when I made flag officer, I didn't become some sort of anointed one. I wore the uniform of a flag officer, and I tried to continue to show that I love sailors, that I was humble, and used humor so that they could realize that just like them, I'm a normal person.
And you've been a senior leader not only in the military, but also in corporate America. And you've recently written a book called Navigating Leadership, Making a Pact with Excellence. In your mind, Gary, what are some of the things that you feel are necessary to be a great leader?
One I'll say, to be a leader, they're always, if there's two people together, somebody has to lead. Even in a marriage, somebody has to lead. Now that doesn't mean one spouse leads all the time and the other one follows, but there's different times when people need to step up and lead. And so over my career, I watched good leaders, I watched bad leaders, I worked for both good and bad, and I realized that you had to have it, which I discuss in stories in my book, and that is, passion. You have to have accountability, commitment, and then model the traits and behaviors of successful leaders. And that starts off, and then you can be a leader, but again, you got to move the ball, and in which direction. So that's part of leadership, is being the compass for an organization so that they want to follow you and they want to go the direction that you're going. And so that aspect of leadership, of moving the ball forward, you've got to create a destination that you're taking the organization. And hopefully that's in a positive direction, because there's leaders that take you in a negative direction. So passion, accountability, commitment, modeling traits and behaviors. And we can discuss that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, you're someone, Gary, that you've got a wealth of operational command history as an example. I mean, can you share a specific moment or mission that stands out to the extent that you can share details, high level, something that was particularly challenging and how you and the team overcame it and how your leadership was a part of that?
Well, there are many examples, but one of them was standing up a squadron from scratch in Japan and having to move 165 people over to Japan. And that took a lot of coaching and leadership, because you take 165 people, including family members, to a place that they've never even had the ability to conceive. We're going to Japan. We're going to sleep, with a house heated by kerosene heaters on tatami mats. So we created a vision and we executed that vision. We overcame obstacles and we became the number one squadron in the fleet. But another story was when the USS Cole was hit in Yemen, and I was captain of Tarawa, and we were about 72 hours away from them. And I turned the ship around. We were up in by Kuwait and hit maximum speed on the Tarawa, got on the announcing system, told the crew what had happened, and that we're going there to support, rescue, protect the USS Cole and their sailors. And I was amazed at how many sailors came to me and said, I'm scared. I joined the Navy because I wanted it to pay for my college. Why are we going into danger? And so we arrived on the horizon when the sun came up 2.5 days later. There was the big Tarawa, 42,000 tons. And with 26 helicopters, 6 Harrier jets, and 2,000 Marines, we kind of intimidated the village. But it took calm, competent discussion with my sailors, keeping them abreast of the mission and what we were doing. And so I think a leader needs to be calm and clear and be available to his or her organization so they can tell the temperature. So both of those things took a lot of compassion and took a lot of vision. And I had to show that I was rested and ready to go, and that I was going to do more than was expected. And I was going to have a great attitude. And that great attitude was a positive attitude. When you're going into a combat situation, it doesn't have to be a cheerful, but a confident and a positive attitude.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. I mean, it's not always a cheerful attitude because it's certainly a stressful situation, but it's got to be the right attitude to give people the trust and the confidence that they're ready to follow and that you're able to execute the mission.
And the other thing, empowering people, as we were discussing it hit me up that some leaders are authoritative and they never delegate responsibilities, but maintain not only accountability, but responsibility. And so delegating responsibility to juniors in your organization empowers them and makes them grow.
That's a great point. I mean, I think that is a place where a lot of people fall short and they struggle with is the delegation. And you've got to be able to trust your people and have been developing your people so that you can impart on them different scopes or tasks and have them execute it.
Absolutely. When I was on Tarawa, I first spent 18 months as the number two or the executive officer. And the captain at that point was so terrified the ship was going to hit anything that he gave every single order on the bridge, come right 5 degrees, come left 15 degrees, go 5 knots, go 10 knots. And so the young officers that gave the commands then to the helmsmen and to the engineers would just wait for him to tell them what to do. And so they knew when we get underway, oh, okay, I've got the job up on the bridge. I'll just go up there. The captain's going to tell me what to do. And I saw that they didn't grow. When I took command and the first time getting underway from San Diego Bay, it's a 2-hour process to get a ship underway, a ship that big, 4 hours for the engineering department. Anyway, I got the young officers that were on the bridge to have the watch to get us out of port in San Diego. I got them together and I said, okay, I'm going to sit in the captain's chair and I'm going to read the San Diego Union Tribune and you're going to get us out of here. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. And just don't hit the bridge, the Coronado Bridge. Well, I then left the bridge, came back a half hour later. Boy, they were surrounding the chart table. They were going, we should turn here. And anyway, the sweat was on their upper lip, on their brows, and they really worked it hard, got us out underway, but knew it was the responsibility was theirs. I was accountable for the safe navigation, but they were responsible. And so I saw them grow muscle, if you will, in the process. So by delegating, you help people grow in their job and in their confidence.
And as a leader, it makes you feel good to see that evolution and the growth of your people as well.
Absolutely. It's heartwarming. And yes, it's a tremendous experience.
And so I've got a little fun fact for you, Gary. So, and my listeners don't know this either. So, my first job out of college, I have 2 engineering degrees. I don't think you knew that. But my first job out of college was I was working for NAVC on a Navy base, a small Navy base in California. And I actually was responsible for test planning and execution and performance assessment of the Aegis weapon system and different testing events. And the USS Cole is an Aegis class destroyer, DDG 67. And so I remember when that ship got hit. So way back in the day, but I was working on the Aegis program during that time.
Okay, so you were out in California on the Aegis program. I know that civilians were all complaining about that program because all of a sudden their garage doors would start opening up because of the powerful radar systems. Maybe that's still classified.
That I don't know, but I did not have any issues with my garage. But so I do remember as you were telling that story, it's definitely an experience that resonated with me given my background working on the Aegis program.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you for doing that. It's a tremendous program. But if you ever see any newsreels of the Cole after it was hit, the boats that are patrolling the area all came from the USS Tarawa. And their sailors, the Cole sailors, did a tremendous job of saving that ship. And then my sailors and Marines did a tremendous job of continuing the work on the ship and providing security in that port.
And you just made me think too, we talk about how small the world it is. And I think just hearing us talk about this experience, I mean, it is a small world. And though we did not know each other back then, you never know how people have common experiences and you come together and you meet people and you have conversations that you can talk about those common incidences and memories. And so I think from a moving the ball standpoint too, you just never know from a career standpoint who is connected to who and who you might come across. And so again, going back to making sure that you are a positive attitude as well as presenting yourself and your brand in a strong way because you never know when that'll come back. and you'll connect with someone that might have been from your past or might be connected to someone from your past. So people are always watching. Remember to hold your brand out the way you want it to be interpreted by other people.
Excellent point. And that goes to networking. It's just not how many connections do you have on LinkedIn but if you're in a class or you're in some sort of event, you need to stay in contact with people. It may be following a seminar. You reach out to people that were in that seminar a year later and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What are you up to now? But you got to continue to build those relationships. Like you say, you never know how it's going to affect you in the future. So always protect your brand and have a positive brand.
Absolutely. And you bring up a really great point. I mean, the network is so important. I think people are realizing how important it is, but people sometimes think that it is a numbers game. And if I know more people, that's great. And it's really about the quality of connections that you have. It's not the number of followers or connections that you have on LinkedIn or on some other platform, but it's building those authentic and genuine relationships, quality relationships with people, no matter how small that number is. That's what's important. People get so caught up in the metrics, of how many followers or likes that they have. And the other thing that I just wanted to share is, people will ask me, and Gary, that I do a lot of work with pro athletes, and they see me posting pictures on social media with some high level player. And people will always ask, well, how did you get to do that? That's so cool. Well, here's the simple answer. It takes a lot of work, but the simple answer, or the easy answer, is I spent the time to network and build quality relationships with people. I mean, that's what it is. It's just cultivating relationships over time, not asking for things, but just building good relationships where you're serving others. It's not about what they can do for you. It's about just getting to build those relationships, you serving on how you can bring value, and that will come back to you. And so many people lose sight of all of that.
Well, service, I love that word because service isn't just in the military wearing a uniform, but you can serve your family, you can serve your friends, you can serve your community by being a leader and showing initiative and having a great attitude. And I do have to mention that I love that picture with you and Tariq. My 6-year-old granddaughter is fascinated with the Miami Dolphins. And so she'll watch the game wearing her cheetah outfit. And yelling at the TV, put Tariq in. So
Oh,
it's
that's great.
amazing how, like you, a young gal has fallen in love with the NFL at age 6.
Oh, I love it because I fell in love with football when I was 4 and have just been a student of the game. So I think it's great that she's excited about the game at such an early age. And you were to tell me when I was a kid that I'd be able to do the things that I get to do now, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm just making a point because I think it's important, is I would never thought that I would be around the world of the NFL because I didn't know anybody growing up. I wasn't in a football family. My dad didn't coach. I had no industry contacts. And so it just goes to show, like, if you put yourself out there, have the courage, like we talked about earlier, just go do it and make connections. And, is it going to be one connection that's going to change everything, that first connection you make? Probably not. But it's about just continuing to relationship build and focus on the service element of it. And you'll meet the right people. You'll connect with the right people. The people that are meant to be on the journey with you will be there. And the other ones that aren't won't. And there's been a lot of people that I've reached out to that could care less about what I was doing. And that's okay. I think it's important to know not everyone is meant to be on the journey. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, absolutely. And, you've got to have a little bit of vision. Like we said, if you're going to move the ball, you've got to have a direction you want to move it. So I think you need to set goals and you've got to, like I said, courage is not the absence of fear. You talked about stepping on the stage. And I think one of the keynote speakers who did a great job said, well, I'm standing behind the curtain. I'm terrified until all of a sudden I step out and execute. And so don't be afraid to reach out to someone and have a story, build your own stories. Because I love the quote from my father-in-law who used to say to his children and his grandchildren when they were hesitant to do something, he would say, what are they going to do? Punch you? So the answer is no. So if you reach out to Tyreek Hill, is he going to punch you? No, but he might like your story and build a connection. So Have stories about your life. Don't be afraid to step out on the stage and show initiative.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember too that it's the vulnerability in our stories that helps us build connection with others. It's not just all the successes, it's the struggle, it's the overcoming the challenges. Those are the things that are going to get people resonating with you and wanting to connect with you. It's not that you made $1 million or that you achieved this title. That's all great. And there are people that are impressed by that. But the people that are really going to support you are the ones that come together because of those struggles and that vulnerability that you share.
Absolutely. And that's why I love my book. It turned out great, Navigating Leadership, Making Impact with Excellence, which tells not only about leadership, but a little bit about my faith journey, my humility journey, which that one I'm still working on. And the fact that I grew up in Buffalo, New York, flunked third grade. My mother put fun in dysfunction. My father put the funk in dysfunction. And I knew I had to get out of Buffalo and do something with my life. And so where you start does not determine where you end up.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's so important to remember. Where you start does not determine where you end up. And as you know, from a sports standpoint, they always say the game isn't over until the clock hits zero, right? So, I mean, you always have to keep playing the game. In my first book, Move the Ball, there's a chapter called Play the Full 60, which is about how sports teams have to play during the entire time that they're on the field or on the court or whatever, the 60 minutes of gameplay. But for us, the game clock isn't over until I say one of two things. One, we're gone, or two, that goal is no longer valid. Because I think it's important too to remember just because you have a goal doesn't mean you can't change it, or some priorities change, things evolve. And so you're not married to that goal. If it's not important anymore, then focus on what is important. And so that's important for people just to remember that you can always pivot and change the goal.
Absolutely. And if you set a goal, and to put it metaphorically, and that goal is to get to the top of this hill that's in front of you. When you get to the top of that hill, your vision changes and you see, oh, wait a minute, there's another hill. That's my new goal. So don't be afraid to modify, pivot, and resolve your goals. And so you find out that some people live their entire life without a vision, without a goal, and just day to day. And then all of a sudden they go, wait a minute, is that all there is? So some people ask me, well, Gary, how do you set a goal? And I say, first of all, grab a 3x5 card. And so they'll go, okay, boomer, what's a 3x5 card? Well, goals written by hand, by pen or pencil on a piece of paper. It has been studied that it just really embeds them into your brain. It's that paper, pen, muscle, brain interaction that really solidifies your goals. And it's very simple. Start off with it is. So you write on this 3x5 card, it is. And maybe that it is June 9th, 2024. I have lost 15 pounds and I feel energized. I feel great. I feel more comfortable. And so you write that out. It has an objective date. It has what you have completed in a present tense. And then the emotional aspect, how you feel. And then read that in the morning, read that at night before you go to bed, and read it whenever you're stuck. And so I've found that people that write goals on 3x5 cards achieve them 10 times better than anyone else.
Well, it's not just writing the goal. What you're really talking about, Gary, too, is the whole process. Right? Like, here's the goal, but how I feel. So it's stepping through the whole process of achieving that goal and what it will feel like to achieve that. And there are a lot of high performance people that talk about visualization and visualizing getting through that process of achieving that goal. And when you do that, you absolutely have a much higher likelihood of achieving it because you've gone through the whole process, not just thought in my head, okay, that's my goal and I'll get to it when I get to it, but you know what it feels like to actually achieve it. And that triggers your brain to kind of want to do more things every day to get you to that point.
Absolutely. Everything can be broken down to what do I have to do today to move the ball one step further? You know, when you talk about play the 60, I went to the Naval Academy. In the Naval Academy, just due to recruiting and size of midshipmen, you know, we play some great teams. And sometimes we get hurt really bad. And sometimes we surprise them. And why do we surprise them? Because the ethos, the ethics of the Naval Academy is to play all 60 minutes to give it your best and to be disciplined throughout the entire team. And I've been to games where we see our team is behind, but they're disciplined. And then the other team is go ahead and they start acting out and all sorts of antics on the sideline, and they're not showing any discipline. And then sure enough, Navy comes through and scores again and defeats the other team. So playing the 60 minutes, playing it entirely with enthusiasm and discipline makes a difference in your life.
I like that, playing it with enthusiasm and discipline. That's great. And I've had the pleasure of having a few Naval Academy grads on the show who have played football at Navy. Recently had Jesse Iwuji on the show, who is currently a Naval Reserve officer, who is a NASCAR racer, professional race car driver. He's been on a couple times. Had a few other amazing people on the show too. I do a Path to the Draft series every spring to highlight members of the draft class. So had a couple younger gentlemen on the show talking about their experiences playing Navy football. And so definitely some great people that come out of the academy. There is one day in December that I do not root for Navy football. Sorry, Gary. Just one day.
But fully understand it's that 24-hour period that Army and Navy are foes. But we both I cheer for Army against Air Force, and I hopefully you cheer for Navy against Air Force.
Yes, absolutely. So, Gary, one other thing you made me think about, too, that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned is executing with enthusiasm and discipline, as you mentioned. But one other thing that I wanted to share with people, I was talking to someone yesterday about this. And earlier I mentioned differentiating yourself, separating yourself by doing different things. I want to encourage those that are listening to think about going the extra step. And what I mean by that is there comes a point where you might be like, okay, you know what, that's the limitation, but I'm going to go one more step. And let me give a story to mention this. So I've been doing a lot of interacting and networking with people in the world of professional racing lately. And I was down in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. And while I was there, I was visiting with a racing team. And I happened to come across another gentleman from another racing team. And he was like, you should stop by and see the facility sometime. And it was more, he wasn't inviting me per se to go there. It was just more of a pleasantry, like, yeah, go check it out. So I thought to myself, I said, you know what, let me just go over there. And I just want to see what the facility looks like from the outside. So I drove over there and I took a picture because I have a daughter who's very much into racing as well. So I took a picture of it and I was walking back to my car and I got in the car and I was like, okay, let me go now to downtown for the combine. And I said, you know what? No, I'm going to go inside that building and I'm going to talk to somebody if I am able to. So I rang the doorbell and a gentleman comes out and I tell him who I am and what I was looking for and the type of contact I was trying to get. And so he took me inside. Another lady gave me the business card of a person for me to contact. And that was the start of that relationship. But all because I said, I'm going to go through that door. I'm not just suggesting to go through doors. That could be trespassing. But it's thinking through, like, what if I do one more thing instead of saying, oh, you know what, that's all I can do. Can you do something in addition to that that could lead to something? You never know. And the worst that I thought that could have happened in that particular situation was they just said, no, sorry, thanks for stopping by, and shooed me out. But they didn't. They had a great conversation. And the other part of that is I was prepared. Like, I knew what I was going to say when I talked to the person. So going back to what you said, Gary, about having your story, right? You as a military officer know all about preparation. I know about preparation. The pro athletes that I work with, like, being prepared is so important. Well, we have to do that. No matter who you are, you need to be prepared and have your story and have your pitch and have whatever message it is that you're trying to convey to people so that when an opportunity presents itself, you can deliver that. And you never know what might happen as a result.
Absolutely. And nobody punched you when you knocked on that door. So, but I love the analogy of horse racing or racing. Everybody can tell you who won the Kentucky Derby, but very rarely, unless they're bettors, can they tell you who was in second place. The winner may have just nosed out the second place horse. So there's such little difference between first and second place. And so going that extra step puts you in first place.
Right. And we talked about networking before. I mean, there might be someone that you want to try to connect with that you might think, they will never respond to me just because of who you are and who that person might be in their level. You never know if you don't take the shot, right? You got to take the shot. So have the courage to take that step, send a message, be succinct, but know what is it that you're trying to, how are you going to stand out so that you will get a response? And that's so important.
Yeah, when I was in command of a squadron at North Island in Coronado, California, my teenage son came home and said, Dad, for my assignment at school, I have to talk to a Vietnam veteran and interview him. And I said, okay, let me find somebody for you. Well, I opened up the Coronado phone book, found Admiral James Stockdale, a very famous aviator and Medal of Honor winner. And I called him up and he answered the phone. I said, Admiral, this is Gary Hall. I'm over here at North Island and my son has an assignment to speak to a Vietnam veteran. Would you be willing to speak to him? And he said, yes, Hall, have your son at my house at 8:45 Saturday morning and I'll give him 30 minutes. So I dropped my son off and an hour and a half later, I'm wringing my hands going, where is he? And so finally I went up, knocked on the door, and Admiral Stockdale came to the door with my son and went, don't be so hard on the boy. And my son said, thank you. And we walked off. But had I been intimidated and not asked that question, my son would never have had a lesson that he carries around today of having to spend an hour and a half with James Stockdale. And I stopped being so hard on the boy.
Well, that's a great story, guys. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have some more fun with my 2-minute drill. We'll be right back. You already know how to move the ball. Now it's time to dominate the game. In my latest book, Dominate the Game, I uncover the strategies of top performers that are proven to tackle procrastination, break through barriers, and more, giving you the confidence to go after everything you want. Life is about more than just showing up. It's about differentiating, elevating, and dominating. So here's the deal. Grab your copy of Dominate the Game today and get your playbook for success. Make this next year the year you dominate in every aspect of your life. Because remember, the game is yours to conquer. All right, Gary, we are back. Are you ready to have some more fun?
Oh, I love this kind of fun. The stress is building. My brow is furrowed. My lip is perspiring. Let's go.
All right. First question is, what did you want to be when you were 10 years old?
I wanted to be an astronaut. I was fascinated with the Mercury 7 astronauts. And so I wanted to be a Navy pilot and be an astronaut.
Oh, nice. What 3 words would you use to describe yourself?
Compassionate, loving, funny.
Great 3 words. Why are you worth knowing?
Well, I think if you knew me, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to learn about yourself. I'm going to save your life by advocating for men's health. And you'll get a few laughs out of that too.
That's a great answer. Who would play you in a movie about your life?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, I like him. He does great work. And then what would that movie be called?
From Restriction to Rear Admiral. It could happen.
Oh, nice title. What is one thing most people don't know about you?
That I was an amateur magician and belonged to the International Brotherhood of Magicians and used to hang out with a young teenager named Dick Cavett. Nobody on your listeners probably know who Dick Cavett is, but I could do magic tricks, ride a unicycle, and juggle.
Oh, very nice. I can't do any of those. Maybe some basic magic tricks, but not many. The next question is, what is a pet peeve of yours?
Rude, ignorant people. I mean, just rudeness is a pet peeve in almost any environment. The people that don't conduct themselves with demeanor, whether it be in a restaurant, at a movie theater, shopping, people that feel entitled and therefore are rude.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we talked about before about how people are always watching. So everyone needs to make sure that they're checking themselves and not being rude and always having that positive energy in any circumstance. Even when things aren't going your way or you're frustrated, you still have to remember that you never know when someone might see you and you might come across them again in life. So don't be rude.
Absolutely.
All right. The bonus question, Gary, is would you rather travel 100 years in the future or 100 years in the past, and why?
Okay. I'd rather go 100 years in the future because I like indoor plumbing. I don't want to go. I don't want to go back 100 years and have to use outdoor plumbing.
I gotcha. Okay, I will say I've not heard that answer before, but that is a good one. Now, Gary, as we look to close the show, I'm going to ask you two things. One, I want you to let us know where can people follow you. But before we get to that, you've done so many great things in your career. Like we talked about, you've been a 2-star flag officer. I mean, you also have been the special assistant to the president, the senior director at the National Security Council. I mean, you commanded Expeditionary Strike Group 2. So many amazing roles that you've had in your career. Which one for you has been the most impactful?
Well, I really loved being captain of a major ship. And if you're in the Navy, you aspire to command, and there's nothing greater than command at sea. I deployed several times with 1,000 sailors and 2,000 Marines, and knowing that you're responsible for the safe navigation, the combat readiness, and the morale of the crew, I just love my sailors and Marines, and I miss them every single day.
And where can people find your book, and where can people follow you on social media?
So my book, Navigating Leadership, Making a Pact with Excellence, is available on Amazon and also on barnesandnoble.com, but go to Amazon. And my podcast is the Admiral's Almanac. It can be found wherever you get quality podcasts. That's be Apple, Google Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. But my website could be www.admiralsalmanac.com.
Perfect. And we will have all of those in the show notes. And we didn't get to talk about your podcast, but it's a great show for everyone to check out. We'll have to have another conversation where we continue our discussion on careers and how you set yourself apart, as well as talk about leadership and your podcast, Gary. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. You are a superstar, and you're moving the ball forward every single day. Proud to know you, proud to be on your show.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words, Gary. And thank you to everyone for listening. One thing that we talked about on the show was the importance of networking. So my challenge to all of you today is go out there and put yourself out there and start networking with the people that you want to know to build great relationships. And, you never know who you can collaborate with, who you can team with, what might lead to other opportunities for you. And if you're struggling with networking, I do have this website. It's called thenextfirstdown.com. There's a link in the show notes. You can watch a few short videos to help you with virtual networking, what to say, who to network with, that kind of a thing. So go check that out. Also, go check out all of Gary's links in the show notes. We've got links to his book, to his website, to his podcast. Go give that a listen. And also, if you wouldn't mind, if you like the show, do me a favor, tag me on social media. Let me know something from today's episode that you really liked. And also be sure to share the show with some friends, family, colleagues, and coworkers too. All right, everyone. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch you next time. Until then, make sure that you suit up, you show up, and you move the ball. Thanks for listening to today's show. If you found this episode to be helpful, do me a favor, leave me a review, and also share the show with a few friends too. Next, if you're looking to take your career to that next level, unlocking the path to executive heights and high income opportunities, go to www.thenextfirstdown.com and join the newsletter. This will give you priority access to tips and strategies that will help you accelerate your career today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. As always, I'm here to be in your corner and help you to move the ball. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Admiral's Almanac. Please share with your family and friends. I'm your host, retired Rear Admiral Gary Hall, author of the best-selling book, Navigating Leadership, Making a Pact with Excellence, available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. It's the perfect gift for the leaders in your life. Pick up your copy today. Follow the Admiral's Almanac wherever quality podcasts are hosted, and reach out to me if you'd like a keynote speaker at your next event or want personal coaching on your career goals. Again, thanks for listening to this episode of the Admiral's Almanac. As we say in the Navy, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. Until we meet again, I'm Rear Admiral Gary Hall.